The views expressed by the speakers of CamaPlan podcasts are those of the speakers only and may not reflect those of Cama, its members, or employees. Cama does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by these speakers. Professional advisors should be consulted before implementing any options presented. Cama absolutely does not endorse or recommend any individual or organization, including the speakers. Cama, its members, and employees do not accept liability for losses and/or damages arising from errors or omissions within, reliance upon, or any use of the information provided by the speakers. Individuals are strongly encouraged by Cama to conduct their own due diligence before making any investment choices. Cama does not act as, nor offer the services of, an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. If tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other similar expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Road to Financial Freedom, a podcast that allows experts to share their stories and secrets to unlocking their financial independence. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator in Ambler, Pennsylvania that is focused on educating investors with different ways to grow their retirement savings faster through alternative investments. And of course, we are continuing to record our podcast remotely from separate locations everywhere. I'm Jess Jones. I am a CamaPlan team member and your podcast host. And this week's guest is a money coach, stock options trader, professional fund manager, long-term investor, trainer, and above all, a big dreamer. He purchased his first real estate property at 18 and later obtained his real estate license to become one of the top agents in his brokerage. In the world of real estate, he has learned countless lessons and experienced the highs and lows of investing in this asset class, which then led him to the stock market. There, he traded stock options and developed rules to trade by to drastically increase his income through the stock market. Along with his co-founder, Phil Falcone, he educates students on how to invest in real estate, trade stock options, and grow their wealth through his training institution, Investor Schooling. He is also the co-host of a syndicated radio show, Investor Schooling Live, which is broadcast live on Sundays in Philadelphia. His ability to dream big for himself and others allows people to become who they want to be while teaching them how to make real money and build real wealth. So please welcome Larry Steinhouse to our podcast. Larry, thanks for being here today and thanks for taking us live.
Well, thank you. I was so impressed by the introduction. I was wondering who you were talking about.
Well, you certainly do have a really impressive background. I'm super excited to learn some more about you and, what you do, how you got started and how you've gotten to this point. So, well, let's just jump right in. So
sounds like a
tell
plan.
me some more about your background, where you were born, grew up, went to school, studied. I'm really interested in, how you first became so inspired to then eventually at 18 decide, I definitely want to purchase a property.
Wow, you went pretty far. I mean, let's start with, I was born in Brooklyn. I was actually born in real estate.
Nice. Yeah, exactly.
I was born in real estate, and then my parents took me home to more real estate.
Right. That's a good way to look at it.
I'll give you a minute to think about that one. I stole that joke from a friend of mine, and I thought it was funny.
It is very funny. Definitely. I mean, I guess that's a really great way to put it. All real estate investors really do get their start in real estate.
Yeah, they get born in real estate, exactly. So
Exactly.
So I was 18 years old, and I was working at, if some of you guys remember, you probably have no idea, but Crazy Eddie was a electronics store that was the most popular electronics store in the Northeast, and I was a technician there. I was 18 years old. I was fixing stereos and car stereos and TVs and VCRs, all that kind of stuff. And one of the technicians who worked there was buying properties in Belmar, New Jersey. I don't know if you know where that is, but in Belmar, New Jersey, he was fixing them up, renting them, and he was telling me about how much money he was making. I thought that was great. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to try that. And I was 18 years old. I really had no idea what I was doing. I mean, look, I'm 18 years old, and we all know that when you're 18, you know everything. And, and then as you get older, you get dumber and dumber and dumber. But I'm 18 years old, and I'm working at the gym one day, and I'm on the stationary bike, and I'm looking for something to read. And they used to have the real estate books. It's funny that I talk about this now, that they used to have these books called the real estate book that you looked up properties in, that nobody has them anymore because everything's online.
Right.
So I'm looking at the real estate book, and I'm just going through it. And at the time, I'm living near Princeton, New Jersey. So if you know where Princeton, New Jersey is, and I see this advertisement for a 2-family house in Easton, Pennsylvania. I had no idea that Easton, Pennsylvania was, probably from Princeton, about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half ride. But either way, I ended up calling the real estate agent who listed the property, and I said, hey, I'm interested in buying this. So I take a ride. I drive down there. It was listed for $26,500. And remember, this was 1984-ish, right? And it's listed for $26,500. It's a 2-family house. It's got positive cash flow of about $200 if I buy this thing. At the time, I didn't know how impressive that was, especially to spend $26,500 and get $200 positive cash flow. I mean, that's like gold. That's brilliant. But anyway, I go there. She goes, "So, what do you think?" I said, "I'll take it." And she goes, "Okay, can you give me a check for $500 to hold it?" And it's an earnest money deposit. And I said, "I don't have $500." She goes, "Well, do you have $100?" And I said, "Well," put it this way. I wrote her the check because I was too embarrassed to tell her that I didn't have $100.
Right.
Now, at the time, I'm making $5 an hour, and at that time, that was above minimum wage, believe it or not. So I'm making $5 an hour, and I'm trying to figure out what I have to do. She says I need to come up with $3,600 to close, and I get a mortgage, whatever. I'm going to get a mortgage, and long story short, I end up closing. And then I buy this book that a lot of people know about called No Money Down by Robert Allen, and I read the book, and I read how I did it, which was kind of neat. So I actually read how I did it, and I actually ended up buying that house with credit cards. And it's funny because that's one of the things we teach in investor schooling right now. We teach people how to buy houses with credit cards. And then sure enough, everybody's going to say the same thing. Credit cards? What are you, crazy? You're going to pay 25% interest, right? Isn't that what you thought when I said that?
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought. I heard credit card and immediately thought of my credit score and the effect it would have and all these things that are still kind of over my head. But yeah.
Every single one of those things is wrong thinking. The first one is, who cares if you're paying 25% interest if you buy a house and the tenant is paying the interest? Right. Remember, you're not, the tenant is. So if you buy a house and your payment is $1,000 a month at 25% interest and the tenant's giving you $1,200, are you making money?
Yes.
How much is it costing you? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing, right? So you make $200. Yeah. So I have no problem. I mean, believe me, I'd prefer not to pay 25% interest when buying a house. But if it becomes the only choice, I have no problem with it as long as it's going to cash flow positive. I don't care. And the other thing, too, is like everybody always talks about this thing, other people's money, right? You ever hear that expression? You're working for CamaPlan. You must hear this all the time.
Yes.
Right?
A lot of self-directors out there.
I bought this house with other people's money, right? So, yeah. So I do. I borrow a lot of money. It's funny. I borrow a lot of money from people who have IRAs, and I send them through CamaPlan. Yeah, if they choose to go there, I send them through CamaPlan. They set up their self-directed IRA. I borrow money from them. I pay their self-directed IRA. But other people's money isn't just mom and pop money. It could also be institutional money. Look, when you get a mortgage, a regular mortgage, is it your money?
Yes.
No. If you get a regular mortgage with a house, right, and then the bank lends you $100,000 to buy the house, whose money is it?
Right, it's a bank's.
It's a bank's. Is that other people's money?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's other people's money. Right. So it doesn't matter. As long as you're not using your money, you're using other people's money. A lot of people have trouble making that connection that even if it's a credit card, it is other people's money. It just chases money instead of mom and pop's money or my money. And my goal is to go to closing, every closing I go to. If I go to I say this, if I go to a closing with $500, in other words, if I have to take $500 out of my pocket to buy a house, I feel like a failure. Because most of the time I buy houses and get money back when I leave the closing. Right.
So did you had that experience now, but was that the case for this first house investment?
No idea what I was doing.
Exactly. You read that back. Right.
Yeah,
you read that back in that book and it affirmed, oh yeah, I did the right thing in buying this and that, or this is exactly what I did. But what lessons did then what lessons came out of that investment after that? Like, what did you have to learn the hard way, I guess? So
the first thing I did was I made the biggest mistake was I sold that property 1 year later for 50% more than I paid for it. So think about that for a second. I sold her for 50% more than I paid for it 1 year later.
Yeah.
Right? Wow. So think about this, right? So if I say that that's a big mistake, how could that be a big mistake if I sold the property for 50% more 1 year later? Well, here's the reason it was a mistake. First of all, I paid $26,500 for that property. That property now has gone through a couple of bad markets, but it's probably worth $250,000 right now. And it was positive cash flow of $200 then. And the rents were like $300 and $250 or something, I think they were, right? Could you imagine what the rents would be now? The rents would be $1,200 and maybe, I don't know, maybe $1,500. So the amount of money I would have made on that property would have been enormous if I would have just kept it. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned is buy and hold is the absolute best strategy in real estate. Now, there are so many strategies in real estate, and I practice many, many of them. But buying a hold and holding onto your real estate is probably the greatest thing you can do to build wealth and even build a legacy if that's something you desire.
That's great. And I mean, so you're still 18, 19 years old at this time. At that time, I was thinking about like getting a date to the prom. You know what I mean? I wasn't thinking about real estate and building my wealth, and my mind wasn't in that same place that, you know, yours obviously was back then. How do you then kind of deal with the fact of, okay, well, I learned from this lesson that this was not something I should have done a year later, sell this property back, even though I, you know, made a profit, it wasn't the profit I could have made. How did you, I guess, at that time, align your mindset to be comfortable with failure?
Well, that wasn't a failure, first of all. But
right.
you know, you get as you grow, and Jess, you'll learn this. As you grow, expect to fail, expect to make big mistakes, small mistakes, big mistakes, and you have two choices. When you make a big mistake or a small mistake, you could sit there and you could just, you know, hide yourself in it, get depressed over it, ruin your life over it, or you could decide that, hey, oh well, that's done. Let's move on to the next thing. One of the biggest financial obstacles I faced was 2008. I actually went bankrupt. I lost everything I had. I had a whole bunch of real estate, and I changed my strategy. I used to have a really great buy and hold strategy, which was, you know, how to make a certain amount of money every month on each property. I would buy properties at low value, and I'd make sure that the tenants can pay the rent, which is what we're talking about now. And in 2006, you know, people were buying properties, and, you know, it seemed like a day later they were worth $50,000 more than they paid for them, which really wasn't true, but that was the perception at the time. It was like Bitcoin, you know, literally like people think it was like Bitcoin. And you know, so I started to change my strategy to what I call now the stupid and greedy strategy. And sure enough, it ended up in disaster. It ended up in bankruptcy. Now, that was one of those things where, you know, I walked in there. Look, it's not the proudest moment of my life, don't get me wrong, but I did walk into the bankruptcy knowing, hey, this is a really good business decision. Let me end it, and let me start over the next day. And I literally went to the Toyota dealer the next day, and bought a car. And the guy goes, look, the guy goes, your credit score is 420. I go, yeah, I know. He goes, you're going to pay 25% interest on this car. And I said, okay. And I ended up buying the car. And because of that, I started to rebuild my credit. Now, at the moment, we're talking 13 years later, I now have $700,000 available credit on credit cards. I could buy houses. I have, by the way, buy houses on credit cards. I do repair work on credit cards. I mean, it's the greatest thing. I buy the credit card. I use it on the credit card. I pay the credit card off. Sometimes it's 0% interest. Sometimes I don't care. Sometimes it is 24% interest. But I have to, you know, I deal with it and I make it work. That's other people's money. Again, and I did it because I rebuilt it. My credit score has been as high as 805 since then. It averages between, it's funny because my credit score averages between 620 and 740. Now, you would go, 620? Oh, that's horrible, isn't it, Jeff? How could anybody have a 620 credit score?
My novice credit score self is definitely thinking about that number and getting a little alarmed. Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute. So when do you need your credit score?
When you're about to buy something, big car, big house, big investment.
Right, when you buy a house or a car is when you need your credit score. So are you about to buy a house or a car tomorrow?
Nope, I was at one point this quarantine, but not right now.
Okay, great. So that means that you don't need to worry. If your credit score is 500, who cares?
Right, yeah.
And if you start to think about that and understand, we actually teach credit and credit building and credit score building in our school. But if you start to think about the fact that your credit score is not important, you learn how to use your credit score. So I laugh at people with 850 credit scores. Because if they have an 850 credit score, that means they've wasted their credit score. They should be applying for credit cards over and over and over and over again and get their credit score down to 740.
Yeah, okay.
Because you know what the difference between an 850 credit score and 740 credit score is?
I guess not anything if you're not buying it.
No. Let's say you're buying a house or getting a loan or whatever. Do you know the difference between an 850 credit score and a 740?
Not really.
Absolutely nothing.
Wow.
So the bank will give you the same exact loan, same exact terms with a 740 credit score as they will with an 850 credit score.
Wow. Okay.
So does it matter if you have an 850 credit score?
No, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. So even in the 15 minutes that we've been talking, you've really already started to get me thinking critically, thinking a little bit smarter about the ways that I think about money. I'm curious about how you got so masterful at what you do. So you've gone from investor to broker to teacher. What was each stage of that like? How did you go from this is something I do for myself and these are the lessons I've learned myself to I can teach this to people. I can give back and I can start to share these lessons with others and start to educate them.
Wow. So that's a whole lot of stuff there. So,
oh, yeah.
So I believe that I've been teaching people real estate investing for probably 25 years. Mm-hmm. And, basically I would, have friends and I'd say, yeah, look, I own a couple of rental properties. You should do it. And then I would give them the math, and it's funny because they always say, "Oh, what about this? What if the tenant, what if there's the toilet clogs up and it's 2:00 in the morning?" And it's like the reasons that people don't buy investment properties is silly. It's absolutely silly. What if the tenant wrecks the place? Well, what if you're 65 and you have $20,000 to your name? Okay, so that's the real problem. Anyway,
right.
So I've been teaching people, but just in casual conversation. Now, years ago, there was a whole bunch of people. It all started out like a meetup groups, and people started right. going from place to place, and they would give presentations. I know CamaPlan did it a lot. They would do presentations on how to buy properties, how to raise money, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I got connected with Phil Falcone as my partner at Investor Schooling, and he was doing meetup groups once a month, and I went to a couple of them. And it was interesting. His meetup group actually taught me a lot. But at the same time, we became friends. And as we became friends, I started to realize that this is a really good thing. Now, at the same time, I also, many years ago, started trading stock options. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew how to buy and sell stock options, which is the easiest part. But mm-hmm. buying and selling stock options that will make you money is totally different. So I started buying stock options, and I actually found that I examined my trades over 4 years. I examined my trades, and I realized that I had made money sometimes. I lost money sometimes. I was trying to figure out when I made money, when I lost money. Sometimes I would lose big money. Sometimes I would make big money. I couldn't figure it out. So I ended up making about I think it was around $4,000 over 4 years of trading, which wasn't a lot, but I was really glad that I didn't lose money.
Right.
Then I decided to make a set of rules based on the trades that I was making, and I wrote these rules down. And sure enough, the first year following the rules that I wrote down, I made $80,000 trading stock options.
Wow.
With a $20,000 account. Right. I'm like, all right, well, either I got lucky or there's something to this. Mm-hmm. So the next year, I made $150,000. And I'm like, maybe there is something to this. And then the following year, $250,000. I'm like, wait a minute, there's definitely something to this. So then I said, all right, let me see if I could actually start teaching this. And I had to grab a couple of people, start teaching them, and I noticed they were having some success. Most of the time, if they didn't have success, because they really weren't applying it, but they were having some success with it. And then Phil and I were talking about one day, he was looking for something to do. I was looking for something to do, because honestly, I was home. My rental properties pay for all my bills, and my stock options pays for my toys, like my Corvette, my Mercedes, my Mustang. Who cares, right? So right. I don't need to do anything anymore. I don't need to do anything now. But I was bored. I was totally bored. Yeah. So I decided to open up Investor Schooling, but I didn't know what it was called yet, right? So I'm talking to Phil, and Phil and I are talking about this, and I'm like, hey, Phil, why don't we do this? Why don't we create a school where we can actually teach people all this stuff? And he goes, yeah, I'm into it. Let's do it. And it turns out that he owned a website called Investor Schooling, which was awesome. So we ended up using that name and using it, and it's great. It's stuck ever since. And we ended up using that name, and we ended up using that website. And now we have over 200 active students. We have super success. I mean, it was unbelievable. The other day, I actually had a student who cried. He cried. I remember when he came to the school, and he was when he came to school the first time, you could tell he was really distraught. And he was squirming in his chair, and he was having trouble sitting. And he goes, look, I'm a truck driver. I drive truck. I'm a delivery truck driver. My back is on fire. I can't be in a delivery truck anymore. But I can't do anything else because I don't have an education. This is all I can do. And he says, please help me. So he joins the school, and he starts trading stock options. In his first 6 months, he made $48,000 trading stock options. Wow. Following the rules that we teach. And he cried the other day. He actually said, I don't have to work anymore. And that was like
That's
the most awesome. It was the most awesome thing that we've had. Now we've had students make a lot more money than that. It blows my mind. I mean, even like when I make money, I actually started funds, and you said earlier that I'm a professional fund trader. I started funds, and I have a fund now that I created. That it's a closed fund, so I can talk about it. It's a fund that I created, and people gave me $25,000 per share, so they could buy number of shares, but per share is $25,000. I started trading that fund on September 1st of last year. So far, they've been in distributions. They've gotten 50% of their money already. So they made 50% on their money already. So I still have their $25,000, and they've already gotten back $13,000.
Wow!
And
again, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it blows my mind. And then we have another fund coming out too, which is kind of cool. We have another fund coming out too, which is kind of cool. It's so exciting. It really is. It's fun. And we have another fund that we're doing. So that'll be another stock options fund. That one will be $100,000 minimum. And then we have another one that's coming out. This like a real estate fund where we're Phil and I going to buy huge commercial properties, and then also at the same time we're gonna have partners. So all the people in the fund are going to be partners.
That's awesome. I'm interested now too. You bring up investor schooling. I'm excited to hear, what you guys do. So you describe the truck driver as one of your students, but who, is there a typical student of investor schooling, or have you found that there are a bunch of different people from a bunch of different walks of life who all want to learn the same things, or you found that there's a common overlap in the reasons why people come to investor schooling? I'm just curious if there are any common characteristics that you see in your students, or if there's anything that really lines them all together.
So it's funny, you're describing like what marketing people say, what's your avatar, right? Yeah. So I have no idea. And it's bizarre because we've tried to identify it several times. And what we've mostly discovered is it's people that want to change their life. But you can't tell. I mean, there are people who, we had a guy in here yesterday who was 17 years old. I'm like, I looked at him like, why are you here? He goes, I don't care, I want to learn. I go, I can't even have you sign the paperwork to become a student because you're 17. You got to come back with your parents. And he's like, I'm going to do that. but at the same time, like, why? Like what you said earlier, why aren't you looking for girls? He goes, I could do that too, but I want to learn real estate. I want to become a millionaire before I'm 30. I'm like, I said, you have that attitude, you will. And so it could be anything. I mean, we have people who they come to us, they're 75 years old and they've never invested before, and they're like, they want to learn. It amazes me. And I got one guy who made over $300,000 already trading stocks and stock options since he came here. And he's always been a real estate investor. He's known Phil and I for years. He decided that he wanted to learn stock options, and sure enough, there he is. He's learning that.
That's awesome. And then when it comes to, working with Phil and becoming close friends, it started out as a business partnership, and you guys have become close friends and partners and continue to partner in investor schooling. When people want to partner with someone else, whether it's even like in investing, I'm always curious to hear from our guests too. What do you think are some of the major characteristics that make up a good partner? So like things that you look for, things that have been successful between you and Phil that complement each other, and his strengths and your strengths complemented with like his weaknesses and your weaknesses, not to use weaknesses, but you know what I mean, the ways that you two complement each other. I'm curious to hear, what your take on partnership is.
It's the toughest thing in the world to have a partner. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Okay. When you get married, you'll understand what I just said. Okay.
Yeah.
And everybody out there just laughed. I got it. But here's the deal. So partners or marriages or anything like that is always has its challenges. But as far as a business partner goes, there are different challenges than a marriage, of course. But I would highly recommend that anyone, before they even open a business, whether they think about partners or not partners, read a book called The E-Myth Revisited. And the reason you read this book, first of all, it talks about systems in your business, which I am a systems guy. I mean, when you come to investor schooling, it's funny because behind the scenes, there are so many things that go on. I mean, you can't really see my radio room. I can't show you the room. You can see behind me, but you can't see on the other side because this camera is a different camera than the other cameras that we use. But everything that we do has a system. Everything that we do has electronics or something behind it. And when I come up with a process, I look for the process that will grow with us. So I'm a process guy. Phil is a presenter. Now, I'm a very good presenter too, but Phil loves to stand in front of the stage and present. And if you ever seen Phil present, you're on the edge of your seat, and it's just great to watch Phil present. So I'm doing all this back end stuff. He's presenting. I'm also presenting, of course, and we have a lot of fun with that as well. But at the same time, I need to know what Phil can do. I need to know what I can do, and we have to understand that we also can't do everything. We have to hire people. Right now, we have a staff of 5 people because we've grown so much that we have a staff of 5 people. Because there's no way that I can do everything. There's no way that Phil could do everything. In fact, the last 2 weeks, we expanded. We actually took down all the walls in our office because we have so many students now that we couldn't fit them all in the room.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? And we're buying a building 2 doors down because we need more room. So we actually expanded. So I've been here every day for the last 2 weeks doing wiring and wiring up the building, not the electrical wiring, but the systems, the cameras and everything that we do. If you've ever seen our presentation, it's like a television production. I mean, I watch every once in a while. I watch TV right now, and these people have these Zoom cameras on, right? I'm like, really? I mean, what I can do and what they're doing, it amazes me that they allow this on TV.
That is really interesting that you bring that up too. Is the you talked about your systems, that you're a big systems guy, and you talked about implementing this set of rules for yourself too when you started doing stock market training. I'm curious. I also agree with you. I think it's very funny that big production talk shows or this and that really bring their guests on Zoom as well. Just as a side note, I think that there are so many. This is a time for innovation, and how people have not chosen to innovate always fascinates me as well. But you're an innovator. You definitely. It sounds like even when there is an obstacle in front of you, you choose not to look at it as a failure, get you down, and you turn it into a set of rules that you can abide by, a system you can implement. How do you develop those? How do you recognize it, first of all, as, this works for me. This is a system right here. And then how do you develop that? How do you implement trial and error? Because, you've got students. So you're teaching, and how do you create kind of insurance for yourself as a teacher when you're trying these new systems or developing new processes?
Well, I test them out on people. So look, every once in a while we try something and it doesn't work. And it just doesn't work. I mean, we actually, it's funny because we actually had I tell you it's because we've been talking about it. We have a referral program. It says, if you bring a student in, we give you some money, right? Because it's only fair, right? And no one ever wants to do it for that reason. They want to do it because they want to help their friend and they want to help us. So we realized really quickly that may not be the greatest thing. As a matter of fact, there's a book by Daniel Pink called Drive. Another one I suggest you read. And this is all about that. It has nothing to do. People aren't money motivated. People think they're money motivated, but no one is money motivated. I'll be honest. I'm not money motivated by the school. The school is fantastic and it's extremely successful. But I don't need to wake up in the morning and get here and try to meet the painter yesterday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning because of the renovation. I don't need to do that anymore. My life, I could stay home and watch Dr. Phil all day long if I want to, and it would more than pay my bills. But I'm motivated by what the students are learning. It absolutely amazes me when the students come up to me and they're making that kind of money, and it's because I taught them something. So that's my motivation.
Yeah, and it's an incredible motivation to have. I think I come from a theater background. I've had a lot of drama teachers in my life. Some of them want to be there to help. Some of them are there for lack of a better word for their ego because they didn't make it or they didn't do this and that. And there's something tainted to it. So I think having a teacher with a clear motivation, it's very clear why so many students are drawn to you. You have 200 students right now. So it's very clear to me just based on our conversation right now. Going back to your students too, you talk about the story with the truck driver, and I'm not pulling your chain when I say this, but the fact that, he was able to come to you, tears, say that his life had changed from $48,000. He doesn't have to drive that truck anymore. Right. I mean, I have back problems. I'm 26 and I have chills from hearing that story. I mean, I think it's incredible to hear that people are able to take these lessons and take the things that you're teaching them, these systems, implement them in their own lives and determine their own level of success. So I'm curious on the other side of things too, how do you coach students in overcoming obstacles? Are there any common ones that come up that you see? I know you talked about having the attitude of, I want to do this. It's one of the biggest ones, I'm sure. Same with acting, same with anything really. But what are some of if you see any big common obstacles that you've helped them overcome, and how do you teach people how to learn to cope with and accept and not fear failure? Because there's people like you, and then there are people like me who hear the 620 credit score and it tense up,
Right. Sure,
and still, you explain to me it doesn't matter, and I have such a hard time with just adapting who cares in general in my life, but I know I should. That's the thing. There's a block there.
You ready?
Yes.
Don't listen to broke people.
That's incredible.
That's the problem. The problem is people listening to broke people, and what's happening is their mother told them to go to college, get a good job, put money in the bank, right? Or whatever. Their mother probably said, go to college, put money in the bank, get a good job, and then you can retire 2 days before you die because you didn't have enough money. It's bad advice. Going to college and getting a good job and putting money in the bank, all three of those things are bad advice, and I'm going to address them in order. Now, I'm not against college, but the way colleges treat people now, and I'm not talking about the things they teach, but this school loan debacle, I mean, it is a complete ripoff. What they have done is they take a 17 or 18-year-old and they say that, listen to your mother told you to go to college, sign this piece of paper that you don't understand anything that you're signing, and by the way, you're borrowing $50,000, and the second you graduate, you owe $62,000, but you only borrowed $50,000, and we're not going to explain how that works to you, plus we're not going to tell you that the payment's going to be $700 a month, and we're not going to tell you that for the rest of your life, you can never get that removed off your credit, and that you'll never be able to buy a house because of it. But your mother told you to go to college, so sign this piece of paper. That is, I mean, it's criminal what they've done. So that's the first thing. So if you're going to go to college and look, and you want to take a student loan, that's fine, but you better make sure that you're going to college with intention. So, when somebody says, well, I had to go to college because I'm a doctor. No kidding, right? That's fine. No kidding. Right. You had to go to college because you're a doctor. I get it. But let me get this straight. You're a manager in Starbucks and you went to 4 years of college and you have $90,000 in college loans? Yeah, that's a useful use of your $90,000 in college loans that you're never going to pay off. Bad mistake. So let's go to the next one. Get a good job. Oh yeah. Don't get a good job. Become an entrepreneur. Make your own money. Do your own thing because you're not limited to what your employer will pay you. Now I've had jobs, but most of my jobs were sales jobs. And what that does, if I'm in a sales job, what that does for me is it lets me make my own income, and whatever. If I did really well, I made a lot of money. If I didn't do really well, I didn't make a lot of money. It's my own my own fault. Either way, right? So that's what getting a good job, not a good idea. Go out and open a business. Go out and employ people. Go out and do what you want to do. Put money in the bank. Okay, that's the dumbest of the three. Okay, if you ever go to the bank and they give you out those lollipops. Yep. Right. What the name of the lollipops?
Dum-dums?
That's right. And they're even telling you, they're sitting there and they're saying to you.
That's so horribly true.
Isn't it right? They're saying, nah, 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 nah. We know you're a dum-dum and we're going to prove it by giving you a lollipop that says dum-dum. I mean, how many times you deposit money and they send you the deposit slip with the lollipop?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is hitting me like
it's a complete insult.
Knuckle to the gut.
Yeah, exactly right. The absolute worst place you can put your money is in a bank. Now, I have something like 75 bank accounts because I move money in and out of bank accounts because, I have bank accounts for certain businesses and properties and, certain LLCs. So I have all these bank accounts. It's really funny because I go to Wells Fargo and I never carry my debit card with me. So, they would say, you have a debit card? I say, no. I give them my name, my license. They go, which account? And I then have to figure out which account it is. It's really funny. So
how do you manage so much too? Like I know it makes a ton of sense to, based on what you're saying, to open up as many accounts, open up many lines of credit, this and that. But how do you manage that, keep on top of that? How do you stay organized for people who may be listening, just starting out and are not the most organized person and can't remember what they put on their planner 2 days ago or remember to keep up with an appointment? What are some of the best investor time management, investor organizational tips, anything like that you can share?
I don't know, but if you know any, please tell me them.
Yeah. So it really just comes down to you're really following your gut and trusting your gut on a lot of things.
But a couple of things that I do. First of all, I have an Excel spreadsheet of all my credit cards because there's so many of them. Right. That I want to know what they are. So and then I just have the link inside the Excel spreadsheet. I click the link, it takes me there, and I know to pay it. Here's another thing. It's a really cool trick. So when you get your credit card bill, and let's say it's $1,000, your minimum payment's $100, right? And whatever, your minimum payment's $100. When do you make the payment? Do you make the payment the day it's due, or do you make the payment the day you get the bill?
For me personally, I do it like the day I get the bill.
Good for you. Good for you. That's the smart thing to do. Now, here's another thing. How many payments? So let's say it's a 28-day billing cycle. How many payments can you make in that 28 days?
I actually don't know. I really just pay the full amount that's due and don't think about it till next month.
So basically, if you owe $1,000, you pay the whole $1,000.
I do.
Good for you.
Yeah, I don't pay the minimum.
So that's great, but when you start using debt to leverage, to leverage properties, you may find that you can't do that. But this is something else I do, and it's kind of like more of an OCD thing for me, though. It's really funny because like my mortgage payment. So let's say, for example, my mortgage, whatever. Let's say I don't know how to explain it, but let's say I owe $250,000 on my mortgage, right? The weird part is I actually owe $250,000, not $250,153.23. I actually paid the $153.23 because I can't stand looking at the numbers past the zeros. Like it has to have zeros. It has to end in zeros.
That makes a ton of sense.
So a couple of things happen. One is, first of all, it's completely OCD, which is hysterical. But the other thing,
but I completely relate to it.
Right. Oh yeah, you go. Right. It's funny. I get it. Right. But the other thing that's really neat about that is I keep knocking down the amount of interest I'm paying because I keep doing that and I keep lowering my balance. And I do that with every one of my credit cards. So let's say if I owe $1,242.53 today, I go on my Wells Fargo account, whatever it is, and I see that I have to pay it so that it's $1,000. It has to, and it's funny. It has to be in zeros. So it has to be 500 or 1,000. It can't be 700 because that drives me nuts. So I have to pay 200 to make it that number. Now the other thing too is I'll make multiple payments. Remember I asked you how many you can make in 28 days? Unlimited. There are some credit cards that won't let you make more than one payment a day. I have one of those. But most of the credit cards will let you make unlimited. And it's funny because, my American Express bill, I'll pay it every single, we have a business we're running on the American Express bill. My average American Express bill is $30,000 a month. But I'm paying 3 or 4 payments a day because every time somebody charges something, and one of my employees charges something, I got to pay it off because it's $53.23. I got to pay it off because it'll make me nuts.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think it also kind of helps organize when you've got that Excel spreadsheet. You can go in, you can see everything you've got, but then you also don't have to remember, this card has $732.38. It's easier to just be like, all right, this one's a $500, this one's it's easier to organize. And I think what you're saying too is it really depends on what you personally need to do in order to stay organized, but it has to be a self-motivated thing as well.
Absolutely.
It comes from your students, is the anecdotes you share about your students, that idea that there are a lot of self-starters, it sounds like, who come to you, and people who want that reset in their life, want to make that change. In order to stay organized, you got to want to stay organized. It's something that, I feel it's been ebbing and flowing since last March when we started working remotely, and my motivation's gone up and down and up and down. Sure. But I definitely feel like it doesn't happen for me unless I decide I want to do it.
So you're an entrepreneur and you don't know it. I'm calling Carl tomorrow and I'm telling him that you quit.
Like, she's out, sorry.
So I'll tell you a funny story about that. And actually, Phil, years ago, I was working with Phil on something. I was a broker in his agency. It was just we were just hanging out together, but I was broker in his agency because he needed a broker. But the kind of cool thing was, I would spend some time with Phil, and it must have been 6-7 years ago. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's more even. And Phil, every day I would walk into the office. I wouldn't walk into the office every day, but every day that I walked into the office, Phil would literally say to me, "Quit your job, you'll make more money." And I said, "Look, I'm making 6 figures. I have a sales job. I'm making 6 figures." He goes, "Quit your job, you'll make more money." I'm like, "Phil, I'm making a lot of money. I can't quit my job. It's 6 figures." He goes, "Quit your job, you'll make more money." The funny part was, I actually ended up getting fired, which on the way home, I'm like, "Yes, I got fired," and it was really weird. It was a weird. I've been fired before and I've cried, but that time I'm like, "Yes, I'm done. I buy it. And within 6 months, I was making as much money as I was making. A couple of years later, I made 4 times that. And literally, since the beginning of this year, I made almost 3 times that, since the beginning of this year.
That's awesome.
So things are getting a lot better, and he was absolutely right. So that's what I'm telling you. Quit your job, you'll make more money.
Absolutely. There have been a ton of them where I've just been grateful for that contract to end or this and that. I'm lucky now because I had to talk to people like you, so it makes it hard to ever want to leave here. But I completely get what you're saying. It's an entirely, if you're someone who's a self-starter, self-motivated, I found that I'm a lot like that too. It seems like a no-brainer. So I think being able to have that set of rules for yourself, and being able to have the self-motivation to even go to a school if you decide that you want to further your education.
You're going to be there
and go to
Thursday night, aren't you?
School. Yeah, I'll see you there.
You're going to be there Thursday night. You're going to be there Thursday night, and you're going to come and we're going to let everybody know that you interviewed me.
Yeah. Listen, save the time. I will do my best to make it.
Go to investorschooling.com and RSVP there. Investorschooling.com. That's right. We'll see you Thursday. That's
See you Thursday, everyone. I'm interested too. You talked about how you've got new funds coming up, and how it sounds like you really have to, keep a finger on the pulse of between stock trading and the real estate market, this and that. How do you kind of keep up with your knowledge of investing? How do you keep up with your knowledge of the stock market? It's something that I feel like even within this past year has been such a volatile, changing thing. And how do you keep up? Is there anything that you swear by in terms of publications, websites, anything like that? Or how do you maintain your personal education in this arena so then you can go and teach it to others?
I swear by never reading any articles or publications about the stock market. Because if I do, I will only get confused. Yeah. So I actually teach a theory, and I don't know if I can get through. I don't know if you'll get it right away, but I actually teach a theory. It's called the steak and tuna theory, and this is how the stock market actually works. Everything you think you know about the stock market is not what happens. What actually happens, and I go through a whole long explanation, but I'm going to actually try to explain it here in a short version. Yeah. It works like this. So there's a bunch of guys on Wall Street, and they're all working on Wall Street. And at the end of the week, they want to go to the Capitol Grill, which is right down the street from Wall Street, because it's my actual favorite Capitol Grill. If you've ever been to Capitol Grill, it's my favorite one. It's right on Broadway. It's actually on Nassau Street. The entrance on Nassau Street, but it's 120 Broadway. And it's literally 1 block away from where the traders all are. So on Friday night, they want to take their wife, their girlfriend, their mistress, or all 3 of them out to a dinner at the Capitol Grill. Now, if you've ever been to Capitol Grill, when my wife and I go to Capitol Grill, the average bill is, I think if we get it at a cheap, it's $350 for the 2 of us. We've had $500, $700 bills, whatever. But we go there, and they want to go there, so they want to go there for their dinner with, again, their wife, their mistress, their girlfriend, or again, all 3. And they want to go there and they want to have a good time. So that means that they have to make money that week, right? So now when the stock is starting to go really high, they sell the stock because they're going to get their steak dinner. If they wait too long, you know what they have for dinner? A tuna fish sandwich, exactly. So when you look at the stock market, you look at the highs and lows in the stock market, it's all about steak and tuna. And when you fully understand it, and it's you kind of get it when I say it, but when you actually watch it for a while, you go, holy cow, he's right. Because when you watch it and things make absolutely no sense, like Tesla going up to 800-900 again, when the company barely makes any money, it doesn't make any sense. It's all about steak and tuna. It's all about the money manager saying, hey, listen, it's $900. I'm taking my steak and I'm going. And he's going to stick everybody else with tuna fish. And that's how it works. And when you totally get it, it makes complete sense.
It does, yeah. Even just now on a very base level, it makes sense. And I'd be interested to see, I'd be interested to talk to you again in a few months, pay attention and see what I can come back to you with, Larry, because it's definitely an interesting thing. It gets me thinking. This is definitely going to be an episode where a lot of people are going to listen in and I think rethink a lot of things, starting with the way they think about, exactly like you said, the way they think about the stock market, the way they think about, how they view even going to college and that sort of thing as well.
Everybody thinks I'm crazy until they become a student. When they become a student and they're here for a while, they're like, wow, what he says is real. It really works.
I guess that makes me crazy because I feel like everything you're saying makes a ton of sense right now. So.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. I think everybody can benefit from being a little crazy, especially in terms of in terms of money and investments and thinking outside the box. I'm curious as well too about the Investor Schooling live radio show that you do every week. What do you cover on that show? How is it different from, going to and attending a class at Investor School? And how do you decide on what you're going to cover on a weekly basis? How do you come up with topics every week to discuss? I mean, even now on our podcast here, I find that I'm surprised by the new things I can learn every week, but sure. I don't always go into it knowing exactly what we're going to cover. So, I think if you have anything that you can impart on us from what you're able to cover weekly on the show, I'm interested to hear how it differs from the other things you do. So
it's weird, and don't take it the wrong way, but money happens to be my favorite topic. And it's not the actual money, like I'm rich, I'm greedy. It's not that. I really enjoy learning how to make money, how to not pay taxes. It's just fun because you start to peel away the onion and you go like, oh wow, if people put their money in CamaPlan, they can self-direct their IRA. Self-directed IRA, what the hell does that mean? That means that you can actually take your money and put it anywhere you want. Do anything you want with it with small limits. You can do anything you want with it. Who ever heard of that before? That's the kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed learning this. Then I learned ways to not pay taxes. The super rich, they laugh when tax codes are changed. Do you think they really care that Biden's going to change the tax code to whatever 45, whatever he said it was 45? They don't care. The funny part is it's the middle class guy who's yelling, "How dare you tax the rich?" What do you care if you're taxing the rich? You're not even rich. It's just really funny when I look at this. And I learned. My political view is real simple. Show me the new tax. Show me the new tax loophole. And that's how. And I learned how to pay less taxes. Now I also have a goal. I have a goal of paying $500,000 in taxes per year. But and that's kind of fun because that means I'm going to be making a lot of money. But so when we talk on the show, we're just talking about different ways to make money, save money, not pay taxes, the political climate. We're talking about stock options trades that we made. We're talking about real estate investments that we made. Wholesaling. I don't know if you're familiar with wholesaling, but you basically get a property into contract and then you sell it to somebody else. So Phil, he did close on a property, but he sold the property. Within 45 days, he got a property into contract, bought it, sold it, and made $127,500 in that one trade of a house. 45 days. In 45 days, he made more money than most people make in 2 years on a property. Right. And he didn't do it. He spent maybe 12 hours in the whole thing. I had one day in stock options where I made $193,000 in one day. Again, maybe 4 times what most people make in one day. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the students. And then we have people call in. You're welcome to call in. You'd be an awesome caller. People call in, they ask questions, and we answer the questions. And it's funny, the show, unfortunately, we can only get an hour of time right now because they're booked with a lot of other shows, but we're trying to get 2 hours. And in an hour, we don't have enough time. We really don't have enough time. We could just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I agree. Our podcast here is about an hour, and I always find that, with some of my guests like yourself, I'm looking at the clock right now and I'm like, I don't want it to almost be like 50 minutes in. I want there to be more for us to talk about. But I think that's incredible. I think it's really cool that you can actually, take things. And when you think of teachers and you think of the idea of a teacher student, however you want to think of the stereotype, I think there's definitely a barrier there, but it sounds like you're able to, on this show, kind of take that barrier away, be a little bit more candid and show more of yourself too. I think there's more of a leaning now, at least in people my age or this and that, like people want to know their teacher, I think a little bit more than just like, this is what they can teach me. This is who the person is who's teaching me as well. So I think that's really interesting. Without giving too much away for, free in terms of anything like that. When it comes to developing your set of rules for stock trading or developing your investment strategies in general, what do you think are some of the most important ones for people to kind of bear in mind if they're getting started out? I think of myself and I think of, okay, well, I'm going to leave this conversation. How do I start to reanalyze the way I look at money? How do I start to make real wealth for myself? And I think of who I am, some of the anxieties that I already have about like anything surrounding life. But I think of the things that could potentially hold me back, which is probably not a healthy mindset to have, but I do. So I'm curious, what do you think are some of the biggest lessons for new investors?
Okay, you ready for this? It's not just investors, people about money, because you went a couple places with that question. So let's talk about you. All right, you ready? You're 68 years old and you screwed up everything. You don't have a pension. You don't have a house. You never bought a house. You don't have money in the bank. Maybe you have, let's even put it. You have the average of everyone else, which is about $60,000 in the bank. Okay, and that's it. That's what you got. Okay, now you ready? And you're 68 years old. What's going to happen to you?
I don't know.
You ready?
I think I might just die sad and poor.
No, you won't. You won't. Here's the really cool thing about the United States of America. It's, first of all, you're going to get Social Security. You're going to have an apartment that may be subsidized. You're going to have food stamps, possibly, if you need them. You're going to be, so basically, you're going to have a roof over your head. You're going to have food, and health insurance may not be the best health insurance. I mean, when I say health insurance, it's health care. You'll have Medicaid, and so you'll be able to go to hospital. You'll be able to get cared for. Maybe not the best care, but you're going to be cared for. Maybe not the best food, but you're going to be able to eat, and maybe not the best apartment, but it'll be an apartment. So the absolute worst case scenario for anyone in America, as long as they know how to get these resources, which, by the way, are not hard to get, it just drives me nuts that people think that they can't get them, is they're going to have roof over their head, they're going to have food, and they're going to have health care. What else do you need? That was a real question. What else do you need?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking. I guess
everything else is just fun.
The answers.
Right? Everything else is just
I was going to say the answer is happiness.
Yeah, well, so here's a question for you. You ready? What do you think of this question? Would you rather be happy or would you rather be rich?
Happy.
Okay, but you didn't answer the question. What do you think of the question? Would you rather be happy or would you rather be rich?
I like the question, but I do think it is limiting.
The question is the dumbest question ever.
I agree. I mean, I like it because I know I can answer it the way I genuinely would want to answer it, but I do agree. I think it is.
It's not the way you genuinely want to answer it. It's the way you think people want you to answer it.
I can see that.
No, but it's the truth. So here's what happens, right? So you can be happy and rich, happy and poor. You could be miserable and rich and miserable and poor. It just depends on what you want to be. So money has nothing to do with being happy. Money is just money. It's just what it is. Now, there's a certain amount of money you must have for you to not have misery, and I mean real misery. But we've already proven that in America, you're going to have that amount of money. You're not going to be living on the street. You're not going to be in a doorpost. The people who do that are just not reaching out. And they have some other issues. The people who are living on the streets, they don't need to be living on the streets. They can do other things. Now, again, I've never lived on the street. I actually played, the funny part is, there's a movie coming out, and I'm actually a homeless person in the movie, which is hysterical, because they cast me as the homeless person because they thought it was funny. But I've never actually been homeless, but do understand that there are resources that homeless people can get. They're not great, but they can get them. So now they can be happy or they can be miserable. They're poor and miserable. And I know people who are poor and extremely happy and never want to make any more money. In fact, when I start coaching people now, the first thing I say, hey, do you want to make more money? And then I ask them to explain why they would want to make more money before I go into coaching them, because maybe they don't want any more money. I had one guy, it's a great story. I had one guy came to me and he was, he was debating whether he wanted to be a student. Honestly, he couldn't afford it. He didn't have much money at all. He wanted to be a real estate investor. So I looked at him and I said, hey, real simple. I said, why do you want to be a real estate investor? And he goes, because I want to be able to build a studio and play my guitar and record my music. I said, what? And he goes, I want to be able to record my music and, build a studio and record my music. I said, so why do you want to be a real estate investor? Because I need the money to do that. I said, why don't you just go do that and skip the real estate investing part? And he says, well, how do I get the money? I said, how badly do you want this? And he goes, I want it badly. I said, come back to me in 3 months and let me know how you made out. Crazy story. He comes back to me 3 months, and somebody he knew, had a relative who died, had a whole bunch of recording equipment. He bought it for $400. He set up a studio in his basement. Now he's recording his music. I said, see, why did you need real estate? You should just went right for what you wanted, put a target on what you want, and you got it. And now that guy is extremely happy, and he's not rich. He may never be rich. He could be, but he may never be rich. But he's doing exactly what he wants because that's what he focused on.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's an incredible point. And I appreciate you also taking moments to kind of challenge me and challenge my way of thinking as well. But I think it's a huge takeaway that I think any of our listeners can really glean from this interview is know what you want and know how to pursue it, and simply it's just pursuing it. Sometimes it's how you do it.
It's a step before pursuing it. It's visualizing it. It's deciding you really want it, right? So how long ago did you decide you wanted to be an interviewer?
Oh God, not very long ago. I was in the middle of this pandemic that I just knew I enjoyed meeting people, talking to people, so it wasn't very long ago.
No, I'm surprised. Because, by the way, you're very good at it. So I do have to tell you that you are really good at it. You could easily have your own show. You could easily do your own radio show. You could easily leave Carl. Hey, Carl, I'm taking Jess away. You could easily
we can edit this out.
Yeah, you could easily do your own thing. As a matter of fact, I would highly recommend it because you are very good at it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I definitely think it's funny because if you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have told you I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. If you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have told you I wanted to be on Broadway. It's really changed, but I think the perfect synergy of having a steady income and still getting to interview people and crack jokes, as funny and not funny as they may be, and still perform in a way. Yep. I found this is the happiest I've been in the past 10 years, 15 years.
So it's funny, I was going to go there.
I appreciate that.
That's what you wanted to be an entertainer, you wanted to be in front of people, you wanted to be, and you wanted to, again, be entertaining, and that's exactly what you are. You just didn't understand that it didn't have to be a comedian. It had to be something that you could do, and that's why you're really good at this, and my congratulations, because I'm a tough interview.
I had fun though with you. I appreciated being challenged. Definitely. I like the fact that you definitely didn't let me get away with saying anything that was too easy. So I do appreciate that, Larry. I have the one question that we do ask every single one of our guests, and I'm really interested to hear your answer on it. So the question that we ask everyone as we start to wind down is, what would you say are your keys to building wealth and unlocking your financial freedom? So these do not have to be financial, but what is something that has informed the way that you personally look at success? If you can define it into a few key bullet points or, however you want to. I'm not even going to lead you anymore. I'm excited to hear your answer.
Give me the first two sentences of the question again.
Sure. What would you say are your keys to building wealth and unlocking your financial freedom?
That's what I want.
And this does not have to be financial.
Okay. Right. So the keys to financial. How did you put it again?
No, you're good. Keys to building wealth and unlocking financial freedom.
There you go. You ready? Mm-hmm. Decide that you're not broke. Mm-hmm. That's it. Decide
That's
you're
incredible.
rich. What do you want to be?
Yeah.
You want to be rich or you want to be broke?
Yeah.
No, which
exactly.
one? Which do you want to be? I'm
right.
coaching you now. What do you want to be? You want to be rich or broke?
Rich.
Why?
I think that will allow me to pursue my dreams and be happier. Entertainment, like you said.
There you go.
Entertainment.
Beautiful.
Recording, podcast.
So here's the interesting part, right? How rich do you need to be to do what you're doing right now?
Not that rich.
That's exactly right. So it's really weird, but people think the craziest thing that I've found is when I'm coaching people, they almost always have everything that they want.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not about money. Money won't get you what you want because you already have it.
Right.
Sometimes when I need to grow, it's crazy. When I need to grow, I actually have to go find something I want so I can grow.
Yeah.
Because I have the Corvettes and I have the Mercedes and I have the house that I want. I just don't know what else I want, so I don't grow as much. So now I got to go find something else I want so I can grow more. What's
the newest thing you've found?
So right now it's really building investor schooling. And it's just, my goal is just to make this thing the greatest thing ever. I mean, you have to come and see it because it's actually beautiful. We just, like I said, we took down all the walls to make it bigger. And I just love it. It's just so great to watch the company grow and watch the people inside become rich and the employees also. So we have employees. Every single one started out as a student, and they're just learning and they're building up. Paul Moderano is our marketing guy. It's funny. He posted in the Facebook thing. He said, "Come to class, RSVP at investorschooling.com." He started out as a student, and he says now he comes to me every once in a while. He goes, "This is the greatest job I ever had." Now, when I recruited Paul from where he was, I paid him $15,000 a year less than he was making there. Less. And now he makes more money here, not from me. He makes more money because he trades stock options during the day. He's learning covered calls. He's asking me advice about money and stocks. He's making more money he ever made his entire life, and his salary is less because he works here. We've changed his life. Then we got Jamie, who's amazing. She absolutely changed her life. She was working at a bar years ago, and now she's our head student liaison. She talks to all the students. She helps them get through everything, and she makes almost as much money as I do. With what she's doing. And then she just bought her first property. She trades stock options. She just had a baby. It's unbelievable. You got to meet some of these people. It will blow your mind.
I would love to, and I will definitely take you up on that invitation. I will bring my masks, and I will be at your door before you know it.
Don't even get me started with that.
Oh, boy. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I do want to...
Unfortunately for you, we're out of time.
Unfortunately and conveniently, we are out of time. But Larry, seriously, thank you. I think that this is an incredible conversation, and this is kind of exactly what I needed to hear starting 2021 off, rounding a year of working remotely and figuring out that this is something that makes me happy. Now, how do I grow with it? So I really appreciate you taking the time to work with me and to do it all while we were being recorded. So thank you again. Awesome. And, I can't wait to share this with our listeners.
And then real quick, if anybody wants to reach me, they can go to contactlarry.com. contactlarry.com, and they'll have all my stuff there. And you can even make a phone call with me if you want to find out about the funds, whatever you want to do. contactlarry.com.
Great. So contactlarry.com. And then do you have any is that the best way to reach you, or are there any social medias or anything like that?
I'm on Facebook.
Listeners?
You can look me up. I think I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. And of course, if you want to go to investorschooling.com, you can take a class this Thursday and take a free class. It's a free class. It's not a sales pitch. It's a class. We actually teach you investing strategies.
Awesome. Incredible. Well, thank you again, Larry. Everybody listening, please be on the lookout for more CamaPlan events that feature Larry Steinhouse and Investor Schooling. But until then, thank you all for joining us this week on the road to financial freedom. Be sure to tune in next week to hear more from our experts who have paved their roads to financial freedom, or you can call CamaPlan today to learn more about how you can start to take control of your future wealth. Thanks again, Larry, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you all for tuning into our podcast. We truly hope that you're enjoying your ride along the road to financial freedom so far. If you like what you've heard and learned, or if you want to hear more about certain topics that we may have already covered or have yet to cover, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. We would love to hear any feedback from you so that we may continue to make our podcast the best that it can be for you, our listeners. Thanks again, everyone, and remember, tune in next week to the road to financial freedom.